guys, it's Sam, and today I'm doing a little bit of an impromptu book chat on the recent discussion going on between bloggers versus booktubers. This conversation has been recent but also ongoing. It's kind of a conversation that pops up every couple months or so and usually is focused right around BEA because that is when a lot of bloggers and booktubers are all interacting at the same time, and it tends to kind of bring up whatever past situations have been going on within that book community. Some of you may be unfamiliar with the entire discussion that I'm talking about, and it's mostly a discussion that happens on Twitter, and it has happened sometimes in comments of videos. I was alerted to this whole conversation most recently when I was attending BEA because I overheard a small group of bloggers discussing booktubers in a negative way. So before I go any further, I did want to say and stress that this is a small group of bloggers that I am referring to. It is not a widespread blogger problem or anything, but there is a small but loud group of bloggers that do frequently talk about booktubers enough to where I have noticed a trend and I have seen this conversation coming up, and it's something that I want to address because I know a lot of us want to address this because it's problematic at this point and it's hurtful and it's sending a negative message into the entire book community because honestly it isn't bloggers versus booktubers versus bookstagrammers or anything. We are all one giant book community, and this segregation between us honestly has to stop. I am so sick of seeing it, which is why last night when another conversation like this popped up on my Twitter among some bloggers that I really enjoyed and do follow on Twitter, I was so disappointed and frustrated and angry because the same things were being discussed in that conversation I've heard discussed before, and I know booktubers in general haven't addressed these kind of hateful comments that have come from certain members of the blogging community, but I think that time has passed because it's just happens so frequently that it's not a rare situation anymore. And it's a conversation that's kept coming up and it needs to be addressed head on at this point because it's not a matter of creating drama or anything. This is a discussion and a conversation. I would love to have bloggers and booktubers talking in the comments because I think that is where the problem lies, is that there is not a lot of communication between bloggers and booktubers, and bloggers especially seem to not know a ton about booktube and booktubers in general. They know a lot, or think they know a lot, about some of the bigger booktubers. And when I'm talking bigger booktubers, I'm talking there's maybe about 10 that are above 50,000 subscribers. That is a very large number of subscribers, and so those are what people consider bigger booktubers. I do not like that term. I don't really care who has more subscribers than who. It really honestly doesn't matter, but that is the term that is almost often used, and that is usually the group that is being discussed within these blogger conversations. Again, I'm going to stress, it is a small group of bloggers that are having these conversations, but some of these bloggers are fairly big bloggers that have a lot of influence on the community. So when these bloggers are having these conversations among friends on Twitter, you are having the rest of the book community seeing that, the book blogger community seeing that, and maybe thinking like, oh, I don't like booktube either because what so-and-so is saying because so-and-so is reputable. But they're making these generalizations about booktube, and it just seems to come from a place of not really understanding and not really communicating. So at this point, I'm going to address some of the things that have been said. I'm going to use a lot of the things that were said in this particular Twitter conversation because they are reflective of the general conversation that I've seen happening, both things that I overheard in person at BEA, things that I've seen on Twitter before, things that I've heard about in comments of my videos when talking about the blogger booktuber tension. So I'm just going to be addressing those statements because they are so common. So the biggest problem that I have is that booktube is used as this overgeneralization and is used to talk about the entire community when in fact people might only be talking about a small section of booktube, such as bigger booktubers or such as a particular booktuber or whatever. But in a lot of these conversations it's said as booktube is this, booktube does this, etc., etc. And that's not fair because the booktube community is huge at this point. There are so many booktubers that the top 1% of the booktube community is not reflective of the other part of the booktube community, of the large majority of the booktube community. So a lot of things that seem to anger some of these bloggers that are talking about booktube are things that happen in the bigger 1% community of booktube. But still, that being said, those bloggers don't know those booktubers. So you shouldn't be talking about people that you don't know and haven't met and have been hearing stuff about but don't actually know anything about. A lot of the conversation around booktube seems to revolve around the fact that some of these bloggers feel that booktube gets too much attention and doesn't deserve that attention, which I think is a complete load of crap. Bloggers and booktubers put the same amount of effort into their channels, blogs, etc. I put the same amount of effort into a video as I do into a blog post, possibly even more, because I have to film the video, get ready to film the video, edit the video, post the video, make the thumbnail, everything else, where if I was just writing a blog post, it'd be a lot faster for me to do personally. But I put the same amount of time into both and thought into both, my reviews, my posts, whatever. I put the same amount of effort into both of those. So saying that the booktube community isn't worthy of that kind of success feels really petty, because we do the exact same thing on a different platform. Another thing I've heard more than once is that booktubers are paid and that booktube is all endorsements, and that is simply not true. Again, there's a very small portion of the community that might get paid, and they always mention that this is a sponsored video or whatever, and it is your choice if you want to watch those videos or not. I personally do not mind sponsored videos and watching sponsored videos because, again, I can choose whether I agree or disagree with that person, or whether I trust their reviews or not, whatever. And honestly, I am proud of the people that get sponsored videos. That is awesome. You have put a lot of time, obviously, into your channel, building relationships, making videos, making sure your editing is nice, making sure you know what you're talking about, and that is why publishers are approaching those people and wanting different connections with them. That is a measure of how much they have put into their channel, and they should not be bashed for that in any way. If you don't want to watch those videos, that's completely up to you, but bashing somebody for doing those videos, I feel like is extremely inappropriate. That is like bashing somebody for getting a raise in their career or something. Like, why do you care? How does that affect you? And you should be proud of that person and congratulate that person because they got there because of their love of books. With that being said, obviously, the majority of booktube does not get paid to booktube. The vast majority. There's a very small percentage that gets paid or that has sponsored videos or something, but the vast majority of booktubers, myself included, do not get paid to booktube. We do this because it's fun, because we love books, because we love the community, because we love talking to you guys, because we love everything about it, and I'm sure the people that get sponsored are doing it for the same reasons. It's not only because they are sponsored. So to say that when you don't know that person, you don't know their situation, is extremely hurtful, and also generalizing about the entire community as if we all get paid is completely wrong and very misleading to people who don't know that that's wrong. I've also seen discussions about how booktubers are getting ARCs and the bloggers think that that's not fair, when that is completely hypocritical because bloggers have been getting ARCs for years now. I've seen many more ARC reviews from bloggers than from booktubers. Again, there is a percentage of booktube that gets ARCs a lot, but that's also true of a percentage of bloggers that get ARCs a lot. I know a lot of blogs that are very popular that have blog tours constantly, that have ARC reviews, everything else, because they have a larger community that is viewing their blog, which is the same as the larger community that is viewing certain booktubers. So it makes sense that publishers are investing in bigger bloggers and bigger booktubers. But it's not like publishers are just putting all their investment into booktubers. That is simply not true. If anything, I feel like publishers invest more in bloggers because they're more familiar with them, they're used to them and everything else. It takes a lot less of a following on a blog to get an ARC than it does on booktube. At this particular point in time, I do not get ARCs on a regular basis at all, even on a rare basis. I have requested ARCs before of different books, just kind of throwing it out there, that very professional email, and I typically do not even get a response from publishers. So saying that you get a certain amount of views and that booktubers always get ARCs is just simply not true, and is very misleading to the rest of the community who's thinking, oh, booktubers are getting ARCs and they don't deserve them, or whatever the case may be. The vast majority of ARCs go to bloggers. I think the point of the conversation that gets me the most mad is when people start talking about the reviews not being as intellectual or insightful or meaningful on booktube as they are on blogs. I've seen statements like, you can get more content out of a blog post. Bloggers' reviews are more important and intellectual. Or bloggers share their in-depth opinions and thoughts instead of booktubers who just try to promote books. Or the most infuriating of all of that is saying that the blogger audience is better than the booktube audience. More intellectual, more insightful, etc. All of these things are a huge problem, extremely hateful and demeaning and condescending and infuriating. Obviously, I'm still angry about hearing some of these statements over and over and over again. As I said earlier, I put so much time into my reviews. I love doing book reviews. I do them once a week on Mondays. I adore them. I also review every book that I read on my blog, whether it's through a video review or through a written review. I love doing my reviews, so saying that because I'm a booktuber, my reviews aren't as good is extremely hurtful and just plain not true. Also, there's a ton of overlap between the blogger audience and the booktuber audience. I know plenty of people, myself included, who read blogs and watch booktube videos and enjoy both equally. I also know people who only watch booktube videos because that is their preference, or only read blog posts because that is their preference, and that's totally fine. But to say that one community is somehow smarter or more intellectual or has more substance to it just because of the media that they choose to ingest that information on is ridiculous and petty and untrue. As I said before, the problem with all these statements is that they're making generalizations about the booktube community, and even though they might only to themselves be thinking that they're talking about only a certain few members of the booktube community, one, it's still hurtful to talk about those people on a public platform like that and being really snide and rude and condescending to them. But also, that's not clear when you're making statements on social media or just in public, and when other people hear you, they're thinking that you're talking about the entire community. There is no reason for bloggers to hate booktubers, and there's no reason for booktubers to hate bloggers. Personally speaking, I'm directing this a lot at bloggers because I have never once heard a booktuber talking bad about a blogger, whether that's in person or on a social media or in videos or anything. I have never heard that, but I have heard and seen bloggers talking badly about booktubers in person and on social media. So that's why it's addressed this way. I'm sure there are booktubers who don't like bloggers or whatever. I'm sure people have personal tensions between certain people, and that's a completely different situation. That's an individualized situation. And I'm talking about the grand scheme of some more popular bloggers talking badly about booktube in general and how it just needs to stop. I'm sick of seeing it. I don't want to see it anymore. I have been meaning to do this video since coming back from BEA, and I was kind of thinking like, oh, maybe I'll just let it go. It only happens around BEA, and then it happened again last night. So it's just something that needs to be addressed. We are all book lovers. We are all book reviewers. We all love books. We all put out content about books, whether that's on Instagram or blogs or Tumblr or YouTube. We are all loving books. So there's no reason to have hate towards one certain community who is uploading their content on one kind of media. It doesn't make any sense, and there's no reason for it. Bloggers whose conversation I was talking about from last night have since apologized in the thread that they were talking about it. Some of them were more sincere than others, but they ultimately did apologize and will hopefully keep any negative conversations on more private messaging systems and not putting it all over social media, because as I said, that just puts a negative energy out there and gives the wrong impression to people who might not know anything about BookTube and thinking like, oh, I don't like BookTube either because of what this person is saying or what I've heard from this person or whatever. When I have gone in and tried to figure out where the hate has come from between booktubers and bloggers, there was a lot of discussion on my BEA video, and so many people had, this is where it came from, da 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 da. Every single person had a different idea of where this hate came from. So obviously nobody even knows anymore where the original hate came from bloggers towards booktubers, but at this point, since none of us know, it just needs to stop. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to hear about it anymore. It needs to stop. It's unfounded, it's unreasonable, and the vast majority of both communities really like each other and really want to work together, but this kind of negativity that pops up every once in a while makes that kind of feel like a harder thing to do, and I really want to collaborate more with bloggers and like bookstagrammers and whatever, because we're all one big community and I'm sick of it being all divided like it has been in the past. A lot of great positivity has come out of these kinds of discussions. I've seen a lot of like book nerd love, booktuber love, and everything else. Positivity is awesome, and the hashtag was awesome, and it was so great to be talking about some of my favorite book people in general, but ultimately that is just kind of a band-aid to fix this problem that I feel like had to be addressed head on, that we hear these conversations that are being had, these negative conversations, and we want it to stop, and it needs to stop. And ultimately it's just kind of about miscommunication between bloggers and booktubers, and that miscommunication can stop now. But instead of just talking and subtweeting about booktubers or bloggers or whatever, just address it. And if you're talking about somebody specific, then talk about them specifically so that it can be addressed on an individual level. Do not talk about the entire community if you're talking about one blogger or one booktuber or a couple of bloggers or a couple of booktubers. If you want to talk about somebody on social media, be an adult and tag them in it. Because if you really want to have that conversation, then you should be having it with them instead of having it behind their backs. If you want to have a conversation and you feel slighted by somebody, talk to that person instead of behind their back. Understand that not everybody is perfect, that people make mistakes. I make mistakes, you make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes. Bigger booktubers, little booktubers, bigger bloggers, little bloggers, medium bloggers, whatever. But ultimately, own up to that. If you have made a mistake and you want to talk to somebody that you feel has made a mistake or has had some kind of injustice against you or has slighted you in some way or doesn't, whatever the case may be, talk to that person individually. So this can be an individual conversation instead of having a community versus community conversation. Overall, I absolutely love you guys. I love the viewers. I love bloggers. I love booktubers. I love bookstagrammers. I love people that are on Twitter talking all the time. I love the book community in general. As I said throughout this entire video, because I do not want to be misunderstood, the overwhelming majority of the book community is positive. There are only very small minorities that were kind of perpetuating this negativity. Hopefully that stops, but like I said, it's always going to be a small percentage. There are bad eggs in each kind of group. The book community is still a positive place, and we still have a lot of love for books and each other and everything else. So ultimately, we are a positive community, and I think we will continue to be in the future, hopefully even more, and I look forward to a lot more collaboration between bloggers and booktubers and any other person in the booktube community in the future. So comment down below on any of your thoughts. I look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys soon. Bye!